This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? How you doing, Rob Barrett's my engineer. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Week after week after week, I am astounded by the obstacles people overcome to write their first book. They want to do it so bad, or they've been wanting to do it for so long, they're able to push through circumstances a lot of people can't even imagine. Take Richard Ochoa for an example. Parkinson's disease forced him to retire from a job he really loved in 2014, and you wouldn't believe what he loved doing. Being a car salesman. So he decided to set the record straight about car salesmen, and he does it with humor in his book entitled Unstoppable. So you were one of the good car sales guys, right? But wouldn't you agree, like, everybody hates car salesmen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's why I wrote the book, because everybody, even when Trump was running for election, they're like, oh, he's like a used car salesman, the negative connotations salesman. I thought, boy, if they knew what a specified field that is and how hard it is to be good at it, you know, and a lot of car salesmen thought of it that way. When I was coming up, there were like a lot of guys I'd go hang out with, and they'd go to a bar or something, and they'd say, oh, if we meet girls, don't tell them we sell cars. And I thought, why not? And they're like, oh, because, you know, tell them we're a teacher or we work at the bank or something else. I thought, man, that's stupid. I mean, I've always made real good money at it, and I thought it's such a specified field, and it was so hard to make money at it and to be consistent at it. I thought, damn, why would you be ashamed of that, you know? And even my wife, when we were dating, she was in marketing, and we'd go to dinners at these American marketing societies and all these places, and she said, well, he's selling cars now, but that's only temporary. And I thought, huh. So I said, you know, that ain't temporary. That's what I do. Yeah, I even left the business for a while and went and did an outside sales job for a few months after we first got married, and it was supposed to be six-figure income and all this, and this was in the early 80s, and it was really hard to do, but the training was incredible for me, and so that's what helped me. I took that training back with me to the car business, and after that I told her, I said, look, there's not going to be a transient thing for me. And a lot of car salesmen thought of it that way. That's why they weren't any good at it, because they thought, I'm just doing this till something better comes along. And I thought, man, I made steadily over 6 figures. I made 120, 150 grand, 60 grand. I mean, I sold cars to doctors and stuff, and they said, man, if after I pay all my expenses, I'm lucky to make that, you know. And I've known guys that made 200 or 300 grand selling cars, and so if people knew, and it takes a toll on you because of the hours, the mental strain, and everything else, you know. But I did well for a long time.
So this is your life story?
Yeah, it's my life in the car business. I went to Bible college. I was going to be a preacher, and about halfway through it, I realized I didn't want to be a preacher, but I wanted to finish college because that's the only thing I ever set out to do. All my life, my father told me how worthless I was. I was dumb in school. I was never going to amount to anything, and he had his own business. And I originally came back to El Paso after college to work with him in his business. He owned a floor covering company. And then when I got here, he wouldn't let me do it. He said, no, you aggravate me so much that I just can't do it. And I said, Dad, I've grown up. I've paid my way through school. I've been 4 years at college house. He said, I just can't do it. And I owed people money, so I sold my car to pay him. The rest is history, because my uncle sold cars, and he said, man, how did you get that much money for that old car? I said, I needed it. So much I needed. And he said, you should be selling cars. So I looked in the ad in the paper, and I started in the car business.
And you did well, and you want people to understand that decent people are car salesmen.
Yeah. You're not just a liar, a cheat, and they're business people like anyone else, and you have morals and ethics and all that. And when I was in the business, I for a long time, I take pride in what I do. I worked in El Paso, and then I went to Houston, Texas. I worked at Landmark Chevrolet, the biggest Chevy store in the country. I was in the top 5% there sales. We sold over 1,000 cars at that dealership a month. When I left El Paso the first time, I said I wanted to be I was a big fish in a little pond. I wanted to be a bigger fish in a bigger pond, you know, and get some notoriety. And then we moved to the New Orleans area, because my wife got promoted with her company, and the same thing there. I didn't know a soul, and I took off there, and again, flourished wherever I went because of a work ethic and dedication to the business. And in my book, there's a lot of funny stuff and a lot of slick stuff too. My wife always says, God, I can't believe you put that in the book. I can't tell you how many times selling an old car that was a cash car that I held onto the passenger door so it wouldn't swing open, and when they're taking turns, because it wouldn't close all the way, and stuff like that. So there are tricks and everything you had to learn, but again, you do what you have to do.
So how are you telling people about this book?
I did a book signing here in town at Barnes & Noble. I just did one. I started a good Facebook campaign now, blasting on it, and over the weekend I got over 3,000 likes on it. on my Facebook page. So I'm trying like that. I tell you this: the people that read it love it. Over the country, people I went to college with, or people that I knew from working in different places in Louisiana and such. Everyone that reads it loves it. I just got to get more people to read it.
Well, Richard, you were a successful car salesman. I have no doubt you'll be a successful book salesman, too. Thanks. Rachelle Purnell is a wife and mother of 3 who battled mental illness and believes she's won. She managed to channel potentially destructive energy into creative energy and live a life without medication for 4 years now. She details her battle in her book of poetry entitled Mixed Emotions. Rachelle.
I started writing this book about 2 years ago. I was going through like a difficult time in my life. I was in and out of the hospital, and I actually was diagnosed to be schizophrenic. And when I learned like the details of the disorder, about the extra energy that comes along with it, and my therapist was telling me that it was also like the energy could be reversed to creative energy. And instead of like feeling uneasy and paranoid, I used that energy and like became more in tune to my creative side. And then I learned that I could draw like real good. And then I was reciting poetry as well. And it was like powerful poetry. And the more good feedback that I got off of it, it just inspired me more and more to write. I thought, you know what, schizophrenia, energy, mixed emotions. So I decided to name it Mixed Emotions because, my emotions was like all over the place. I couldn't stay on one topic when I was compelled to write. It was like once it came through, I've written it and completed it.
That's amazing that you were able to do that just on your own without medication or anything.
Without medication, because I was taking medication actually, and that's why I had stopped writing. I was actually writing before the schizophrenia came along. Other people would, recognize that something was wrong with me before I recognized something was wrong with me.
Right.
I would deny that anything was wrong, but I felt different inside, and it would scare me a little bit because I would be like, how do they know something's wrong with me?
Right.
Or how do they know how I'm feeling? And that's when the doctors explained to me that people see things, before you do. But I was in denial. But when I started owning that, I did feel different. But once I learned to take paranoia and fear away from all of that, it just turned into a beautiful thing. And Mixed Emotions was the outcome of it.
So how many poems have you written?
Other one, I know I have over 100 some poems that's written, that's laid like inside of my folder to go along with what I have done here with Mixed Emotions.
You have another book coming right after this one.
Yes, I was gonna call this one Raw Emotions. And through that battle, I came out with my own word. I call it mentalcated. I've defined that as being the found balance between the mental and physical states of life, because I believe that when you're mentally unbalanced, you're physically unbalanced. But when you're physically balanced, you're mentally balanced. And when I say physically balanced, I mean like with your feet directly on the ground and able to control your emotions. That leaves your mental state able to balance itself as well. But then I realized that in order to be mentally balanced, I had to take care of the physical surroundings, meaning, say, my hair. I felt like I didn't have to worry about my hair or my clothes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you got people around that's looking at you. And they're thinking, like, what the world wrong with her? Because she, usually keeping herself up and stuff like that. But through it all, I will say my children also helped me ground myself a lot more and use this energy in such a better way. I felt like the people were wrong and that nothing was really going on with me. But I had stopped that now. I think of my household first, my surroundings, what I brought here on this earth. I put my energy into raising mine and being the best me I can be. And I've learned that people can look in at your situation and grow from what you went through and how you are leading your life now.
Now, are you able to go out and talk about your book? And
That's my goal. I would love to be a motivational speaker because I have been through a tremendous battle, and I would just love to tell my story worldwide one day.
Well, keep going, Rachel. I think a lot of people can appreciate your message. A general contractor who renovates multifamily properties in Atlanta, Christos Dejanis, considers writing books his passion projects. His second book, published by Page, is entitled It's the Economy, Stupid. Not political, not angry, but more of a statistical, historical perspective. Is that right?
Well, the thing is, it goes back 50 years, and it statistically demonstrates that while the stock market and the American economy, at least on the surface, are doing great, in reality, Americans today are more financially disadvantaged than any other time since the 1960s.
All right.
Something that most people don't realize. Just to give you an example, let's take the minimum wage. However little the minimum wage was in 1968, when that was adjusted for inflation, it is actually the equivalent of $10.52 an hour. In other words, the minimum wage recipient in 1968 had a $3 per hour more buying power than the minimum wage worker today. And worse off, actually, to make the things even worse, in the last 50 years, instead of people making more money as they should, 44% of all Americans today earn less than $10 an hour. In other words, less than the minimum wage recipient in 1968. This very well explains why 109 million Americans today, 1 out of every 3, rely on some type of government assistance. Not because they're lazy, as often the media reports, but because they're financially broke.
Yeah, the working poor.
44%. That's like I said. 109 million Americans. The U.S. used to. I think back in 1960s. We invested about 150 billion on government assistance, basically, and now it's 1.2 trillion, or close to it. And again, it's because we allow things to gradually degrade like that. There are going to be some people. They say, for example, well, what is the minimum wage got to do with me, or overall with the average American, and there's another indicator. You can show that the economy today for the average person is not as good as it was 10 years ago. For example, prior to the market collapse of 2008, the median net worth per person in the U.S. was $115,000. Today, pretty much after a full market recovery, which everybody thinks we have a great market right now, everything is rosy, blah, 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 the average median wealth is down to $44,900, from $115,000 down to $44,000. And it's worth to point out that in 1962, the median wealth per person was $55,000, in other words, $10,000 higher than it is right now. So what is the great economy? Unless you're talking about the stock market, corporations, blah, 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 then it's fine. But who is really behind a successful economy? The American people. And, the book actually, literally, demonstrates that the American people today they're not headed in the right direction, basically. And we need to do something to kind of change things.
Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, well, the book is full of suggestions, actually. The book is, it's a 3-part book. The first part describes in detail all the doom and gloom, if I may call it that way. It's status quo, basically. That's where we're at. Part 2 has a lot of suggestions. How do you balance the budget? And part 3, I don't want to sound like Donald Trump, but it is how you make suggestions. How do you make America better?
How did we get here? How did this happen?
Statistically, it shows that it did not happen because of one administration or another. Every administration, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican, they all kind of support more and more so the same policies, or allow the same policies to take place. And with special interests gaining ground into our everyday lives, basically we kind of lost against those special interests, and we find ourselves today basically, fighting each other, Democrats versus Republicans, rather than focus on, who the real enemy is in this case, which is the special interest. And of course the politicians, they just do what they're told, by the special interest, so they just kind of follow directions. And for as long as the people are not united enough to kind of recognize the problems, then we're in the situation we are today, arguing rather than solving problems.
Oh boy, I hear you on that. How about it's the stupid economy? All right, I'm just saying. It's break time, but we've got more coming up right after this. Stay with us.
Attention all authors. Page Publishing is looking for authors. Have you written a book and want to get it published? Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, Apple iTunes, and other outlets. They handle all aspects of the publishing process for you: printing, cover art, publicity, copyright, and editing. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. That's 800-204-6099 for your free author submission kit.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Vicki Gardner has lived in Denver most of her life and is inspired every day by the Rocky Mountains. She's a proposal operations manager for an aerospace company and found a creative outlet through writing. She loves adventure, and between that and her grandkids, she has conceived and finally published her first book. It is entitled The Ghost of Morgan Gulch.
Yes. The characters are based on my two oldest grandchildren. They're about 15 and a half and 11 and a half years old right now. And it's based off of their love for adventure. You know, they're fun-loving souls, they're crazy natures, and it's based on their experiences that they've had at a family property that we have up in the mountains. The gold claim that they have up there is semi-truth. The property that my father-in-law purchased back in 1986 actually is a gold claim. And people did do mining on it. So far, we haven't found any gold, but there is some basis of believing there might be some on the property. So it's built around the family adventures we've had up there over the years and some of the fun things that we've done. I wanted to share this story with other children, other families, and let them know the importance of families, number one, and the importance of adventures and having fun. Basically, we've got two children who have been thrown into a situation in this small valley of Morgan Gulch because of their grandfather's struggles with keeping the family ranch, which has been in the family for years, generations. Kyle and Kimmy's parents have chosen to come out from Arizona to live with their grandfather to help him get through this situation. And so out of frustration, I guess, and a way to fill their time over spring break, and after hearing that there's rumors of gold in the valley, Kyle decides that he's going to go find this so that he can help his grandfather save the ranch. And Kyle and Kimmy have adventures around the property, finding all kinds of hidden caves and trails that give them clues that there actually could be gold. They also find an old cabin where they find out that their great-great-grandfather has spent time with his friend, who was actually also his brother, in searching for gold. And together they used to go and pan for gold and help the valley and grow the mining industry. And so they spend their time and ultimately end up finding the cave where the great-great-grandfather has actually found the gold. They share that with their grandfather, let him know that they've been able to save the ranch, as well as bring back together another family that has been in this family feud for years over the property. They're able to mend that by giving them back their rightful ownership of part of the claim that was found on the property. So we've mended fences with a family, we've saved a family ranch, and we go on to the next part of the story. I have a second story that I'm writing called Shadows on the Morgan Gulch, about Kyle's further adventures and helping a little Indian girl who comes to him for help. So that's my next project.
They find a ghost, right? They meet up with a ghost?
They do. Gramps is the ghost. He comes back from time to time, giving Kyle some clues, helping him understand the importance of continuing on his quest to find this gold.
What a well thought out story.
Well, thank you. Right now, I've built a web page called theghostofmorgangulch.com, as well as have put together a Facebook page. I am in the planning stages to do book signings and readings at libraries where I can find them. So that is where I'm at right now. Planning, building a schedule, trying to get my information pulled together so I can go out and talk to the bookstores and to the libraries to go out and do book signings and readings for the community.
All right, Vicki, you go. Ann Jenkins has owned several breeds of dogs over the years and has gained a wealth of knowledge about training them that she shares in her book entitled My Very Special Little People.
How the book started was I had a dog that in the book is called Mr. T. He was a rescue lab at the age of 3 years old. I knew the dog as a puppy because we rented a house from the people that owned him, and I used to walk him a lot because I felt sorry for him, and we got very bonded. And then of course we found a house and we moved, and I never thought I'd see this dog again. And then a year later, the couple have split up. They want to get rid of the dog, and the husband was going to take him in the backyard and shoot him. And I said, no, I'll take the dog. And at that point, I already had another dog. And this dog was so bonded with me. He used to gum tennis balls, and for some reason, I got really upset with him, and I smacked him. And I didn't smack him hard, but I smacked him, and his whole disposition went like he wanted to melt into the ground. It was a horrible experience, and I realized I'd done something really bad to this dog. I really hurt his feelings because I'd never hit a dog before, other than my very first dog. And it got me to thinking that these dogs pay a lot more attention to our behavior than we give them credit for, and that when we verbally or physically abuse them, they sort of crawl into their shell and they don't want to respond to us. When I realized that shouting at dogs doesn't do any good, and smacking them or reprimanding them doesn't do any good either.
So do you make suggestions in the book?
Yes, actually, children are the best dog teachers in the world. And it dawned on me that children play. And when they train dogs, they're in play mode. So when the dog does something right, they laugh, and the dog responds to that. So when you train a dog, you have to be in play mode. You can't be in serious mode. You can't be in any other mode. You have to make it fun. And that's really how we really get the best results out of kids and out of dogs. And that's why kids are such wonderful dog trainers. So my suggestion is when an adult train what I call something goofy, like train the dog to go in and out, weave in and out of your legs, because that's fun. That's something that even adults laugh when they do that. And that takes, instead of shouting at the dog to recall the dog, and you're in a bad mood and the dog's not responding, then go into training something that's fun. Get that fun mode back again, and then you can get back to training your dog to recall. So you never really train in a sergeant major type of atmosphere. You always train in fun mode. So you play with your dog, and you train your dog when you play with the dog.
Nice.
I will do book signings. I've gone around to all the animal shelters, and whatever I sell, they get 20% back to help their shelters.
Very nice gesture, Ann. Thank you. Good luck. Finally, Timur G. Fisher is a petroleum engineer in Texas, and for the last 8 years, he's been working part-time and finally found the time to fulfill his childhood dream of writing a book. It is entitled Life Cycles of an Introvert. Now, that's an interesting title.
Well, basically, it's a catharsis of pain that I've lived through for the last 47 years. I went through a lot of abuse as a child. A lot of that was the result of religion, not spirituality, but religion. And I always felt like as a child that I was always looking out a window, looking at the snowfall and how beautiful it was, but I was never going to be able to feel it on my face or taste the snowflakes. And then a large portion is also devoted to people that I've met in my life that inspired me and basically were kind. My mother was not a person that was kind. She was never kind. but there's been many women in my life that I've met that have been very kind to me, and that inspired me to write some things. And the compelling factor really started back when I was 10 years old. I wrote it was a 4-line little poem that I was confronted with when I got to school one day, and they said, write something about fog. And I wrote something about fog. It was those 4 little lines, and I got an A. It inspired me. You know, I felt like that it was something that I had a talent for. And since that time, for the next 40 years, I found points of inspiration where I've written things, I've collected them together, and then a couple of years ago I decided to put all this in, compile it all into one book.
You know, it's amazing to me. You've been very successful in spite of all this pain that you experienced.
Well, I attribute that to my close relationship to God and spirituality. I had to seek that, really seek that throughout my life. And I found that spirituality is truth, and if you seek the truth will set you free. And then religion is a corruption of truth, and is a polar opposite of spirituality. And so I like to differentiate between the two.
Do you think a lot of times people mistake religion for spirituality?
Yes, I do, and the problem is that spirituality, as I said, is a grasp on truth, real truth. When you corrupt that truth, then you get religion, okay, which makes the two polar opposites of each other. But at the same time, polar opposites attract. So wherever you find spirituality, you're always going to find something trailing behind called religion.
So what are you trying to warn people in this book? What's your motivation?
I just want people to see that truth is really what we're all after. It's really the aspect of the universe. Just as Einstein, Newton, Faraday, all these men who were very spiritual people, they had a capacity to seek the truth, and that capacity of seeking truth left a impact on the universe. I just want to encourage people to seek the truth
And learn from your experience.
Yes.
All right. Fair enough, T-Mart. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And thanks to all of the authors who joined us for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. If you missed a single word, remember, you can always go to 710WOR.com and download the podcast anytime you want. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We got to go, and you've got to start writing. So you do that, and we'll catch you next time. See you, Rob.